What's good? What's good? Shalom, shalom. I know y'all see the title. The mark of the beast is coming, right? Yeah, I seen something yesterday or something about this, a guy getting a Neuralink and all that, and so yeah, a lot of people don't understand like this ID RF ID chip microchip thing. That's the we're gonna get into it, but that would be what we would call the mark of the beast, along with other stuff as well. As far as following along with the philosophies of this world and all that stuff, and the ways of this Babylonian system, that would cause majority of us to take that mark, and we're gonna get into the Bible and see what that mark is and all that cool stuff, and prove that it is the RFID chip, the radio frequency ID identification, or whatever how they say it, right? So of course, all praises to the Most High Yahweh. We do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, right? So yeah, we're gonna get right into it, right? Yeah, like show y'all this little article thingy thing, right? But we had talked about this before, when we did a video about the mark of the beast and all that stuff before. So this is something that they've been working on for years and all that stuff, and they I think, was it last year or something like that, they had like some clinical trials or something like that, and about 1,100 people showed up to do it or whatever, right, for the implant. Yeah, so just read this little article thing. So it says this guy says Brad Smith, first ALS patient with Neuralink, edits YouTube video using brain signals, right? Now that sounds cool, right? You just using your mind to edit and create YouTube videos and all that stuff, right? And that's the thing, they're gonna make it sound like attractive. They're gonna make it sound like, the new thing, right? The new hotness, right? They're gonna make it sound, something that everybody should be doing, and they're gonna tell you all the pros and stuff about it, like, oh yeah, it's gonna help this, it's gonna fix that, it's gonna do this, right? And a lot of people are gonna go with it. And it says implant and motor cortex interprets brain signals to control computer cursor. AI creates a synthetic voice from pre-ALS recording for video narration. Neuralink allows indoor use, unlike previous eye gaze technology. Smith can now play video games with kids and hope to serve others, right? So who cares he playing games with? That's the question. So yeah, that's tripped out, right? These little gadgets that they're coming up with, right? And like I said, they're gonna make it, attractive. They're gonna make it, something that everybody should get. Like how, you can play video games, you can, create videos, watch movies, do whatever, right? And different, they're gonna tell you like it can fix different health, things or whatever, right? So it's a lot of little ways how they're gonna try to twist it and make it attractive to the masses. Cause think about it, I mean, the average so-called what's the word I'm looking for? So-called you know, person that want to do well, um, if they have a sign saying passing out mark of the beast, get in line. I mean, I'm pretty sure, most people would not stand in that line. So it's not going to be as, pronounced like that. It's going to be something subtle, because that's how they work. It's always something subtle. It's not something that's always in your face, right? And, so yeah, we're going to get into it though. And, like I said, we're going to prove that, this thing is the mark of the beast, right? And like the scripture and all that cool stuff. So, what better place to start is Revelation 13, right? Revelation 13, let's start at the top, right? So yeah, this yeah, we're gonna start at the top. So it says, and I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns, upon his 10 horns, 10 crowns, and upon his head the name of blasphemy. Right. So this is talking about the Roman Empire. Right. It's not a actual dragon with or actual beast with, what to say, 7 heads and 10 horns and all that, right? It's what they call a apocalyptic writing, right? Apocalyptic visions that John is seeing. This is a vision that he's seeing. So this is the Roman Empire, right? And they had 7 different providence, connecting to each other, and then within those providence, they had like, what you call like city states or different, underlings or under governments under that, to make up the whole Roman Empire, right? And so then it says hold on, let's get Daniel real quick. So Daniel 7:19 says, and then I would know the truth of the 4th beast, which was diverse. Oh shoot. Ain't a phone jumping. Hold on one second. So, alright, so it says, then I will know the truth of the 4th beast, which was diverse from all the other, exceeding dreadful, whom teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, break in pieces, and stamped the residue with his feet. So, it's talking about the Roman Empire, and it said it was more diverse than others, meaning it was different than the previous empire. It was different than the Greek Empire. It was different than the Persians and the Babylonians. They were more vicious and more ruthless in their rule, right? And it says more exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were like iron and his nails of brass, meaning talking about their military was, they had the Romans had, a great military. They was known for their military strength, right? And it says, which devoured and break in pieces and stomped the residue with his feet, meaning it took out all the other nations and subdued them, and thus became what we call the Roman Empire, right? So that's what John is seeing here in Revelation 13 and 1, right? He's seeing this Roman Empire, right? And then it says, verse 2, then says, the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were as a feet of a bear, and his mouth as a mouth of a lion, and a dragon gave him his power, and he sat in great authority. So then it says, and I saw one of the heads, and I saw one of the heads wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. Right. So the Roman Empire fell. Right. The Roman Empire was taken down, so that so it says that I saw that one of the heads were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. So it was healed through the making of Great Britain, England, and then through the birth of America, right? Becoming that revised Roman Empire. So that's how it was healed. And it says, and all the world wonder after the beast. So now that America is this great, superpower, all the nations wonder after America. Wow, look at America, the great golden city, the American dream, right? For the longest, America was the biggest thing ever. Everybody wanted to come to America, right? And for the most part, a lot of people do. And, still want to come, So then it says, where I'm at, boom, boom. Then it says, and a dragon gave him power in his seat of great authority. And, okay, then, because all those nations, because I forgot to break that part down. So all those nations, gave their power and their authority to Rome. Like, okay, Rome, y'all got it. Y'all the people, right? Y'all the head honchos. So Roman Empire, and that's history. Like when you get into all the different, what you call like different, I don't know what they would. I want to say city states, but I think it's another name for it. Different province of the Roman Empire. You'll see like you'll see like how they were how. Hold on one second. You'll see like how they, when you get into the history, like how they just basically look to Rome for protection, for military might, for everything, right? So they gave them their power. And then it says, and they worshiped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So now this is talking about, so like I said, we, I already got into how once the wound was healed, that was England, Britain, whatever you want to call it, birthing America, and that becoming a revised Roman Empire. Then it says, they worshiped the dragon that gave power unto the beast, and they worshiped the dragon, saying, who is like the beast? So now the beast is NATO, right? All those, so-called Western European countries together, NATO and the EU, right? And it says, and they worship the beast, right? It says, and they worship the dragon which gave power unto the beast. Now, in this context right here, because I know before I was like, the dragon is the Roman Empire, which it is, right? But in this context right here, verse 4, where it says, and they worship the dragon, this is talking about the spiritual demon, Satan, right? Because these people worship Satan. They may put on all the little so-called Christian stuff that they like to do and propagate. But these people are devil worshippers, right? They get their power from the left-hand side, from Satan, from the dragon, from, that's where they get it from. So it says, And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, which the beast is NATO. So, through their satanic worship, through their devilish activities, they get, NATO is flourishing in, the EU, and they're, the Western Empire, they a major force. They're running things, right? Because of the spiritual demon Satan that's backing them, right? And so it says, and they gave their power to the dragon, which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is unlike the beast? Who is unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Because once NATO formed together, because once America dropped that bomb on Japan, right? Because at that time, no other country had any nukes. So once America dropped that bomb on Japan and made every other country bow down, then they formed NATO and the EU, right? North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the European Union, right? So they said, okay, America, you got it, right? And America been leading the way ever since, right? And so it says, who can make war with the beast? Because once they dropped that bomb, they're like, we can't mess with these people, right? So either get down or lay down. So those NATO countries, EU countries, they got down. And as they got down, over time, they end up getting their own nukes, or America end up putting nukes in their country and all that stuff, or whatever, right? So it says, so now that you got this NATO thing, EU thing, so it says, who can make war with the beast? So no, country, until like Russia and China start getting their weight up, they didn't want no parts of America or nobody else, because of course they got that, chapter, that article, I said I was going to remember it, Article 5 or 7 or 13. But anyway, basically I always say it like this though anyway. Basically, they got a clause, how we say it in the streets, one fight, we all fight. So a lot of countries don't mess with America, because you mess with America, you got to mess with everybody else, right? And vice versa. So it's like, so who can make war with the beast, right? But now a lot of these countries getting they weight up, they got their own nukes, they got their own capabilities. They like, all right, okay, it's time to go to war, right? But so it says, and were given unto him mouth speaking great things, and blasphemy, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 42 months, right? So once America did what they did, they started talking big Stone Cold Steve Austin trash, right? And a lot of other countries started bowing down. Look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump, like especially his first term, you know what I'm saying? He was talking like Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? Like, just talking big jump. Then even now, so just the cockiness of these people, then how they go around the world and just, this counter everything that the Most High, established that was righteous, right? So that's the blasphemy, right? And it says, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, and blasphemy against his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. So, meaning he's talking, he's even speaking down about God's people, the Israelites, right? So that's what it means by, he opened up his mouth against blasphemy against God. So, meaning, because they set themselves up as God, right? They changed the image of Christ. They changed the image of the people in the Bible, to look like them, right? That's blasphemy, right? To the point where they got God looking like some old, smiley, old white man with gray hair, looking like, like some white homeless dude, right? They got, Jesus looking all like effeminate, like an effeminate hippie. So it's crazy, right? So that's blasphemous. You know, the false religions they set up, that's blasphemous. The how they call us, the N word and say this or that, or once we do lay claim to our identity, and they say, no, you're not the people of the book, blah blah blah. You just a nigga, right? So that's blasphemy against what it says. It says, and that's blasphemy of his tabernacle, because in them that dwell in heaven, because we are his tabernacle. It tells you in Exodus, we are the church, right? The people is the church. So it's not how the Christian church try to put it, like this multi-ethnic church, right? Because the first time the Bible or the word church was used was when we were in the wilderness with Moses, and we were called the church, right? When you read in the New Testament and Paul is talking about the church, he's talking about us. He ain't talking about these so-called Christian churches on every corner that got so-called people that go there once a week. He ain't talking about that. Flesh and blood Israelites is the church, right? So it says, and they blaspheme the tabernacle, right? And them that dwell in heaven. And, right? Because like I said, because they remix everything. They change everything, right? To make it white supremacy, right? Because Christianity is a white supremacist cult, right? And because everything is, like I said, it's all about, white supremacy. Because how they change the image, they change, everything that's supposed to, that the Bible says, right? And, where it says, all right, then it says, and if any man have an ear, let him hear. He that lead into captivity should go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints, right? Because we patiently waiting for that revenge, for that get back, for that day that the people that destroyed our nation, our people that did this to us, we ready for that get back, because it says this is the patience of the saints, meaning the saints is waiting for that day that he that led into captivity should be taken into captivity. He that killed with the sword should be killed with the sword. And this is the patience of the saints. And who are we talking about? This whole thing that we're reading about is about the Roman Empire and a revised empire. And through history and archaeology and biblical prophecy, we establish, and we can establish, that America is that revised empire. Then so he that led into captivity should go into captivity. Then we can read Zechariah, I believe it is, where it explains how these people, how slavery came to America, with these people, right? So, and that's the thing, because people don't understand, this book is a history book, right? Like, we've been taught that this is some type of hocus pocus, stuff. No, we reading history. It's just, you gotta understand, it's written by us. I say this is FUBU, right? For us, by us, right? And you know how we talk. We talk in metaphors, right? So, once you understand the slang, it's easy to figure out, because you know how we speak. We always use other words to explain what we're trying to say, right? We call it metaphors, right? Like, for example, like, we have a million different words to explain money, right? Some say cheese, some say cheddar, some say, it depending on what, if you are in New York, you're going to call it chicken, chicken grease, guap, right? But if you say it to the right person, they know you're talking about money, right? Slang. We spoke in slang. The Bible is written in Hebraic slang, right? Hebraic thought. You have to be familiar with Hebraic thought to understand what is being said. But a lot of times when we read this thing, we approach it from a westernized understanding. And not understanding that these people come from the East. They have a different culture, a different thought process, and a different view of the world than we have, right? So you have to look at it through their lens, right? And so where are we at? So it says let's get a couple little thinky things real quick. Let's get some precepts. Let's go to Revelation 11:11. It says, after 3 days and a half, the Spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood on their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them, right? And that's what's happening, right? As the Spirit of God is coming into our people, we are realizing who we are. We're coming back to our culture, our nationality, our heritage, keeping the commandments and the faith. These other nations is looking like, dang, our time is up. Oh, man. Because that's how this works. As we go up, they go down, right? That's how he set it up, right? But as long as we're down as a people, the other nations is going to be up. Then once we start to come back to the law, statutes, and commandments and keeping the faith, then he start to bless us. Then we go back up as collectively, right? And so it says, after 3 days and a half, life from God entered into them, and they stood on their feet, and fear felt upon them that saw them. So that's 3 days and a half. That's talking about, that's spiritually speaking. That's, again, like we just said, metaphors, right? That's 350 years, right? So when you get into, like from, our enslavement, and then, our time getting out, being free and all that stuff, right? So, after our enslavement, like I said, we have that process, because what it says in Daniel, in the end times, knowledge shall increase, right? So, so as knowledge increasing and we coming into this understanding and knowledge who we are as a people, right? Then it says the Spirit of life entered into them, and they stood on their feet. Because now we understand who we are. We don't have to hold our head down no more. We don't have to, call ourselves a bunch of niggas and gangsters and thugs and, bees and hoes and all that stuff, right? Because we know that we are God's people, right? So we can stand on our feet. And it says, and a great fear fell upon them which saw them, right? Because these people don't want you to be who God said you should be. Because think about this. We can call ourselves anything that we want to call ourselves in this world, right? In this country. But as soon as you start saying, hey, we the people of this book, and that's when everything stopped, right? I can say I identify as a 72-year-old tiger. And they can be like, he's a 72-year-old tiger. That's how he feels. Let him be that, right? He's not bothering anybody. But as soon as I say I'm an Israelite from the tribe of Judah, all hell breaks loose, right? We've seen it over and over again. Like, whenever a celebrity come out and say, hey, I think we're the Israelites, what happened? Sponsorships get cut, money getting taken, they got to come out and apologize. For what? It says right here, they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them, right? So stand up, right? And it tells you in Joel, I am your God and none else, and we should not be ashamed, right? I'm paraphrasing, right? So yeah, once we start to come to this understanding, Great fear is going to happen, right? That's why these people, these devils, is showing their horns, right? They got they men in office, right? And they still haven't turned it down. They, if anything, they turned it up, right? Um, you know, because these people, look at this, right? So Job 9:24. It says, "And the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he?" So God is saying in the book of Job that the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, meaning wicked people run this earth, right? And what's the thing that we always say, or we always heard growing up? It's a white man's world, right? We know who run this world. We not stupid. We not, you know, naive to the facts. Who controlling everything? Who bombs everything? Who tells people what to do and what not to do, even if they're in a whole different country and got their own sovereignty? We know who does that, right? And it says, "The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof." And how did he cover the faces of the judges? We talked about it. By making the ultimate judge, the greatest black man that ever lived, that ever walked the face of the earth, Jesus Christ, Yahweh Shai, the Mashiach, look like a damn pale face. That's what they did, right? They made him look like that. They made everybody else. Charleston Heston was Moses. Gerard Butler. What's the other little dude name? John Cusack. All these people, right? You know, they everybody, right? They everybody except for who God made them to be, which is the devil, right? They want to be everybody, right? Like, they want to be Egyptian, they want to be Arab, they want to be Asian. They in the Last Samurai. Who are they? They what's the other one? The Last Legionnaire with who's that? John Claude Van Damme. Who are they? They everybody, right? But whenever they make a slave movie, whenever it's about when they make 12 Years a Slave, they didn't get that twisted. You never seen a white person in a slave movie picking cotton and a black person cracking the whip. You know, because if it's supposed to be artistic expression, right? You know, it doesn't matter if a white person plays. You know, it doesn't matter. It's not cultural appropriation. But they make sure they get it right whenever they do a slave movie. You'll never see a white person talking about, "Oh, yes, a boss. Oh, no, sir, boss." And the black man calling the white dude nigga. You'll never see it. They get that part right. But they want to be everything else, right? It's crazy, right? Let's move on. And it says, and it was given unto him to make war with the saints, to overcome them, and power was given over him in all the kindreds of the tongues of the nation. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, those names that were not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world, right? Then it says, "If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword." Here is the patience of the saints, right? This is the patience of the saints that is waiting for this, right? One more. Isaiah 14:2. And it says, "The people should take them." Talking about the Israelites. Let's start at 1. "For the Lord shall have mercy on Jacob, and yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. Strangers shall join with them, and they shall take them and cleave to the house of Jacob, and the people shall take them and bring them to that and bring them to their place." So just like they brought us to their place, America, England, whatever they set up at, "And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and for handmaids, and they shall take them captive who captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors, right? That's the coming future, right? Then it says, that's why it says, he that lead into captivity should go into captivity, because it says, and they should take them captives who captives they were. So whoever took the Israelites enslaved, it's going to come upon a time that they're going to have to go into slavery. That's what the Bible says. It's not me talking. I'm reading what the Bible says. Then it says, if any man have an ear, this is Christ talking. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth to captivity should go into captivity. Over here, Prophet Isaiah. And the people should take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel should possess them. When you possess something, that means it's yours. It's not mine, it's yours. Right? In the land of the Lord for servants and for handmaids, for slaves. And they should take them captive, who captives they were. And they shall rule over their oppressors. Right? That's what's coming. Right? So it says right here, he that lead into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience. You got to be patient for this stuff. You know, when we hear some of this, what they call the gospel, the good news, we want this stuff to happen quick. But the Lord said, vengeance is mine, right? He says, he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith, the patience and the faith of the saints, right? Because the faithful and the patient is waiting for this day to happen, right? And it says, and I behold another beast come out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake like a dragon. And he exercised all power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. Right? So this is our good old Uncle Sam, America, right? With all their philosophies and policies and how they structure their government to mimic how the Rome government ran the Senate, the House, all that, right? So this is what it's getting into. And it says, and he exercised all the power of the first beast, which was, the first beast was Rome. Then the second beast is America. That causes the earth and them which dwell in the earth to worship the first beast. Meaning, everything we do is predicated off the Roman thingy thing, right? Like the from the calendar that we use, right? You know, your little zodiac signs that you people like to swear to. What else? Like I said, just the whole government system, you know, the military system, everything is structured after the first beast, because America is the second beast. And it says, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him, and caused the earth and them which dwelled in to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he doeth great wonders, also maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. How did he do that? How did he make fire come down from heaven? Hiroshima and Nagasaki, when he bombed Japan, when he dropped the nuclear bomb on Japan, right? That's how he made fire come down from heaven, right? And that's what made the whole world be like, dang, we never seen this destruction before. We never seen a whole city get flattened with one bomb. And what was it? Like 80,000 people dead in an instant, right? Never seen that stuff before. Then the other city, I think it was like almost 100,000 some people died in an instant. Never seen that before. That never happened before, right? So the world was like, wow, right? So it was like he do wonders so that he make fire come down from heaven in the sight of men, and deceive them that dwell on earth by the means of those miracles. Because people thought America was like, dang, these people are great. They figure out how to harness the power of the sun and put it in a little warhead and drop it on somewhere. That's what they did. They figure out how to take the power of the sun, put it in a little warhead, and drop it on the city. So people was like, wow, this is cool. We can't do that, right? So, and deceive them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make a image to the beast which had a wound and by been which had been wounded by the sword and did live. So that image they made was NATO, was the EU. Like, this is what we're going to stand for, this North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Nobody's going to mess with us, right? Ain't that right, Debo? You know what I'm saying? That's what they was on, right? So, let's get this really quick. Let's see what this is. Real quick. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so yeah, we can read this. So it says, this is Romans 8 and 28. And it says, and we know that all things work together for the good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose, right? For he whom did foreknown, he also did predestined to be conformed to the image of his son, right? So now, some of us are predestined to be conformed to the image of his son, meaning Christ, the Mashiach, right? Yahushua. A lot of us, some of us, is, got that unction, that yearning to follow Christ. And it's built in us to want to follow with Christ. Do that righteous thing that people are supposed to be doing, that the Bible say that you should do, right? That's what it's saying. And it says, and who be conformed to the image of the Son, that might be the firstborn among many brethren, right? So some of us are, are blessed to be, to have that unction and to be conformed to want to do righteous and on that path to do righteous. But then you have what we read in here, the ones that are going to worship the beast. And how do we worship the beast? When we support these white supremacist ideologies, right? Because that's what the whole with the the propaganda, the philosophies, the ideology of the beast is white supremacy. So that's what the image is, in a nutshell. This white supremacy. And white supremacy is the biggest religion on the planet, right? That is the biggest government on the planet. That is the biggest army on the planet, is white supremacy. Why? Because the people that govern this world put in place that system globally, right? No matter how dark you is or how light you is, you practicing white supremacy. Why? Because that's how the world's set up. Because it told us in, what was this that we just read? Job 9 and 24. It says, the earth is given unto the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof. If not, where and who is he? So he's saying, if this person is not the devil, this person is not wicked, right? Then who is? Because they are the only people that is doing these things, right? So who is? The rest of the world just follows suit because, they running the show. So it's like, well, we might as well get down, and oppress the less fortunate like them. That way we won't get messed up, right? So the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, right? Then it says, so yeah, that's how we end up doing it. So, and by following their philosophies, right? Then it says, 15, then it says, and he had power to give unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that many that would not worship the image that should be killed, right? So if you wasn't down with this whole white supremacy stuff, when they come knocking on your door, they kill you, right? If you didn't bow down to that white Jesus, who they call whose real name, who posed for that image is Caesar Borgia, they killed you, right? If you ask Gaddafi what's going on, they killed Gaddafi, right? Ask Saddam Hussein, right? Ask the before they Venezuela down there. Ask the Haitian president that got assassinated a few years ago, right? They kill you if you ain't down with it, right? That's so it says he had power given unto the image of the beast, and the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many that would not worship the image should be killed, right? And that's what they did, and that's what they do. Let me see. So it's 2nd Ezra 15 and 16. And it says, for there shall be sedition among men, invading one another, and they shall not regard their kings nor princes, and in the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Right? And that's how these people came to us, right? With sedition. They didn't give a hoop nanny about rules, what's human rights or nothing. They violated everything, right? So it says for there shall be sedition among men, invading one another. That's what they did. They came and invaded things, right? Under the banner of Christianity, right? Manifest destiny, right? I wanted to do another video about this because we had did this a while ago. The King Leopold letters. We read the King Leopold letters and how they structured Christianity to enslave the world, right? And I ask people that call themselves a hardcore Christian. I'm like, okay, you're a Christian. Do you even know the history of Christianity or how it came about, right? Like how it spread. How did it come from? Because the people in the Bible didn't follow Christianity. The disciples wasn't preaching Christianity, right? So we have to ask ourselves these questions. Because a lot of us follow these religions because our parents followed them and their parents followed them, and it's something we just do. But we don't know the history of these things, right? So it has been used to enslave the world, right? That's what it's been used for. So, and it says, invading one another, and they should not regard kings nor princes, in the course of their actions should stand in their power, meaning they ain't gonna care about no sovereign nation, no nothing. They gonna do what they want to do. And when it says they should stand in their power, meaning they're not gonna hold themselves accountable. They're not gonna hold themselves guilty, right? And they don't. They don't feel bad about nothing they do, right? I mean, if so, they would have at least give us a apology, 500 years later, 500 years later, right? Then it says, and no man that might, okay, and he causes all both small. Now we get to the good part. So we have to get into the backdrop to explain who is implementing this mark, right? And we see that it is the nation that is called America that is implementing this mark, right? So it says, and he caused both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark on their right hand in their foreheads, right? So just like we read about this guy that just got the Neuralink installed into his head, and now he's able to create YouTube videos and play video games and do all this stuff, right? So we see our dear brother John the Revelator, about 2,500 years ago. He saw what he saw, and he did as best as he can to explain it. And he says, and he calls all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to have receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, that no man might buy or sell, save he have the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name, right? So, like I said, he saw these things, right? And when you get into let's see, when you get into let me just show y'all this, right? Let me show y'all this. So, like I said, John was a man of God, prophet, straight up and down, right? This is what he saw. We're going to get more in deep with it. I don't know how good y'all can see it, right? So, this is what he sees, right? Then, look at that, right? So, and look, right? We're going to look at the needle, right? We're going to explain all that, right? Get into it. So just look at this word mark in a Hebrew, right? So, or in a Greek, in a in a Greek. So when you go to the blue letter, right, and you go to the word mark, to the word, find it. It's a Strong's G5480, right? So we go there, and it's the word charagma. Hold on, I don't know if y'all can hear it. Hold on, I'm trying to look anything. So it's the Greek word charagma, right? And so, hold on one second.
To use this feature, please make sure your app is running and can access the internet.
And it's pronounced like
Strong's G5480, charagma. Charagma.
If you can hear it, I hope you can hear it. Do it one more time.
Strong. Strong's G5480, charagma. Charagma.
So that's how you say it in the Latin or the Greek, right? And let's see what it means. So it says charagma. Hold on one second. So like. So like, So yeah, hold on 1 second. Then get to. So the word charagma, right? Hold on, boom. Hold on 1 second. Why this jumping? Hold on 1 second. Let me type this. Put this back up in there. Boom. There you go. Phone done jump. Bear with me. Bear with me. Damn, hold on. I don't know why this thing ain't trying to. Yeah, hold on. So it's a Greek word that means to to make to cut, right, or to make a incision, right, and it also goes back to because it comes from the Hebrew word. Hold on, I want to find it. Hold on. 1 second. 1 second. Set lock. Yeah, it's a lock. Yeah, I'm back. But close it out. But yeah, so it's a Latin word that means it goes back to the word cut or to make an incision, right? Which is interesting because like the first picture I showed you about the guy that got it into his hand or whatever, and then the other images I was showing you with the needles, and that's a way that they going to use to put it inside you to implant it with the needle, and you will have to cut or make a impel the skin. So that's another thing that let me show it to you. I'm gonna go right back to it. Okay. So again, it's
Strong's G
that's how you
5480.
pronounce it.
Kharagma. Kharagma.
Right? So and when we go to the Strong's definition of it, which is so when we go to the etymology of the word, right? It's lucky if that took so long, right? Phone moving slow, but it means to peel or to stake, right? So then you look at the shape of the device, right? It's shaped like a impale. Like if you watch a vampire movie, like how they got the little stakes that they stab through the person hurt, it's shaped like that, right? That fits inside the little needle and they stick it in your skin or wherever they put it at. It has that very same shape. So it says a pill or a stake or a pill side, right? So like I said, so it says so John saw this, right? The same like type of the images that I showed you of the microchip and how it looks. This is what John is seeing. He's seeing these little, things that look like, like stakes that you use to kill vampires, right? For the lack of better terms. So he's seeing these little things. So, and he's describing it in the best way he can describe it 2,000 years ago without the technology that we got now, right? And then when we get into the etymology of the word, and it goes back to the word which means to cut or to impale or to make an incision, right? Let's see. All right. So yeah, so we can see like when we get into because the New Testament is written in Greek and Latin, right? So oftentimes when you read these things, you have to, although we're reading it in English, that in a language that we can understand, but to get the full understanding, you would have to look at the text in the original language that it was written in, right? So then when we do that, the word mark goes back to the word which means cut or make an incision. And then the incision that it's talking about, it's like an incision that is made with a impelling device. And then when we look at the instruments that they're using to implant people with microchips, it is what we call a impelling device. And our dear brother John, the Revelator, saw this 2,500 years ago. Give God all the praises, Most High, all the credit, because he knows the what they say. He knows the end from the beginning, right? And he, like it tell us in Amos, he give his he told the secrets to his prophets. So he told John this, right? So and John saw it. Moving on. Then and it says that no man might buy or sell that had the mark or his name or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And so, like I said, and we know like what they want to do with these microchips. They want to put all that type of information on it, our medical information, our bank information. So, it's gonna have these things. So when it says you're not gonna be able to buy or sell or whatever, so they're gonna have information, in those chips or whatever that's gonna, determine who gets to do what and who gets to do whatever, right? And because it's called a change of currency, right? And it happens. For the second time, I'm not gonna look it up, but when Europe changed their currency into the euro, they gave people over there like a certain amount of time. I don't know the name of the currency they was using before the euro, but they gave them a certain amount of time to spend that money or transfer that money to the euro. So then once that date hit and the euro came in effect, if you had those other type of the other type of currency, it was officially broke because they're not using that money anymore, right? So you have to get the euro now because that's what they're spending. So this is what this is technically like. So they're using, and they've been, like I said, they've been working on this and perfecting it for decades, right? You know, whether it's like with the credit card, you know, they started off with the checkbook, you know, and they, you know, they can track your checks, how many checks you write, because they got the little numbers at the bottom, right? Can track the checks. Then they start giving you little debit cards and credit cards. Then, you know, start doing other little stuff. Then, you know, they even, you know, the fact that they would charge you to use an ATM to take your money out should let you know that they're trying to nudge us and push us towards this so-called cashless society where they can implement something like this, right? You know, so they make it a hassle for you to carry money around, right? They make it a hassle for you can do this or that. So when they bring this idea about, oh yeah, you know, you can just swipe your hand across the little thing, or you can do this or do that. You don't even need your, not, you know, carry anything with you. It's going to be very attractive to a lot of people, right? And it says, here's the wisdom of him that have understanding. Count the number of the beast, for this is the number of a man, and his number is 666, right? So, and I heard this broke down a couple of different ways, and I'm gonna give you both, because, you know, I subscribe to both, because I don't see an issue in both understandings. So the 66, the 600 and 600, you know, 666 thing, that is the percentage of people, you know, that's going to take the mark. You know, percentage of our, you know, people that's going to take the mark, right? That's one understanding of it. And the other understanding is this 666 is the ruling class of this planet, right? Of this world, the ones that's implementing all of this stuff, these regulations globally, right? Like how we read in Job that the earth is given into the hand of the wicked, right? So yeah, those are two understandings, right? And from my you know, point of view, I don't think either or, you know, you can go wrong with either or, right? And so then let's see. All right, and let's get 14 and 9, right? So chapter 14 and 9 in Revelation, and it says, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image and receive his mark in his forehead or his hand, the same shall drink the wine of the wrath of God, right, which is poured out with mixture into his cup of indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, in the presence of the Lamb, right? So all these wicked people and these people that's going to follow the image of the beast, right, subscribe to this white supremacist culture, right, and take the mark of the beast, right? It says, they shall drink of the wine of wrath of God, of Yahweh, which is poured out of mixture unto the cup, and is of his indignation, and his torment with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy ones, in the presence of the Lamb, right? Then Cause that's what's gonna happen. Cause a lot of people. What do you say? Like if you save your life, you're gonna lose your life. A lot of people. Cause even when the COVID stuff happened, right? A lot of people, they got the shot, right? They got vaccinated in fear of losing a job or whatever and never ever working again. People wanted to travel and all that stuff, so they got the shot. So you're gonna have a lot of people that's gonna be lining up getting this little microchip thing because it's gonna be the thing to do. Because they're gonna want to live comfortably. They're gonna, like, well, should well, that's the new wave. Guess we gotta get the chip, right? So it's gonna be like that. Then it says, the same shall drink the wrath of the. It says, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image and receive the mark on his forehead or hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out a mixture unto his cup. In the nation he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, in the presence of the Lamb. Right, and it says, and smoke in their torment, ascend forever and ever, and they have no rest day. They have no rest day. They have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever received the mark of his name. Right. So that's why I always say, get out of this system. Right. Quit following their philosophies and trying to assimilate into this place, right? Because this place is going down. It was so hold up. Okay, I see. Hold on. Or is it in 20? One second. There's another part I wanted to get on this. I think it's over here. One second. Hold on 1 second. Finding like that. Bear with me. We read that one. Okay, 15 and 2 real quick. My bad. So it says, and I saw it was where a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast and over his image and over the mark and over the number of his name, and stand on a sea of glass, having harps of God, right? So now the ones that did not receive the mark, and like I said, you see them rejoicing and all that stuff, and it says they looking over what it says, a sea of glass mingled with fire, right? So as they looking down through the firmament, right, all hell's breaking loose on Earth because you got nuclear fire, bombs dropping everywhere. So as they looking down through the firmament, it just looked like this glass, over this, like just a worldwide range of fire. All they can see when they looking down at the Earth, right? And so like I said, we got and not to get all deep. So, because like I said, when this is going on, this is where the Israelites getting their deliverance. So they're gonna be taken up, right? While all this is happening, dust settled, we're gonna be placed back into our land, whatever, right? And then that's when like the Armageddon portion happened. All that, we got into that, right? So I just didn't want people to get kind of tripped up when I said looking down at the earth and all that stuff, but we got into that. Then it says, what else? 16 and 2. And it says, and the first one, and let's start at 1. It says, and I heard a voice come out of the temple saying, saying the seventh angel, go your way and pour out the vials of wrath of God upon the earth. And the first went out and poured his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worship his image, right? Interesting, right? Because when they were creating this so-called microchip thing, and a lot of their cases, like a lot of people were breaking out in boils and getting these different, different diverse effects from it. Hold on. Let's see. Oopsie. So, all right, now, it says, so now, of course they're going to try to dress it up, though, but when you got into, like, when you look into the earlier research and studies and stuff, because a lot of people, was getting these things, these boils and these sores all over their skin. And a lot of times, too, when you be watching these commercials or these little things for medicine, they give you all the side effects and tell you, what can happen. The reason why they know all those side effects is because when they were testing the medicine, those things happen, right? So it says, while the RFID chip implants are generally considered safe, they can carry some risks, including potential complications of foreign body related infections, which could manifest in boils and skin irritations, right? So then, like we read over here, it says, and the first went and poured out a vial on the earth and felt noisome, grievous sores upon man, which had the mark of the beast, and upon which worship his image. So all these people that's conform to this image, this white supremacist ideology, and take this mark, it says that, poured out, it says the first went and poured out his vial and felt noisome and grievous sores upon man which had the mark of the beast, and upon which worship his image. And so we read, it says, one potential complication is foreign body related infections which could manifest as boils or skin irritations. Additionally, some studies have risen concerns about risen concerns about adverse tissue reactions at the implant site, at the reverse tissue reactions at the implant site, which may include inflammation or scar tissue. And it says, body may reject implant by forming scar tissue or developing other tissue reaction at implant site. These reactions can cause pain, swelling, or redness. And it says body immune system may recognize chip as a foreign object and react by forming a protective wall around it. This can sometimes lead to inflammation or infection. And says while less common, other complications could include painful irritation, numbness, tingling at the insertion site, or rare cases even need of surgery to remove implant. So so we see the images, this how it looks, in the hand or whatever, right? So, like I said, during the case studies in the trials, people were catching these boils on their bodies, right? They were breaking out in boils and sores and stuff. So, and the Bible says, the first went out and poured out a vial on the earth and filled with noisome and grievous sores upon the man which had the mark of the beast and upon which worship his image, right? So, like I said, so this is what John saw when he wrote this down, right? He saw these things. And now that, like Daniel said in the last days, that knowledge shall increase, now that we have the technology, we can see these things come to play, right? We can see these things playing out. And it says, boom, boom, boom. But so we can see these things playing out. And, trying to see, do I need... So I was trying to find some images of how those boils was looking on some of these people. Couldn't find none though, but so Revelation 19 and 20. So it says, and the beast was taken, and with him and the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them which had received the mark of the beast, and them that worship his image. These both were cast alive into the lake of fire burning with brimstone. And the remnant was slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which proceed out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh, right? So what is the beast? So like I said, so again, a lot of people in Christianity, they will equate this verse with hell, right? But in other places, in another verse, when it speaks about in the same connotation of this, it's, hold on, let me read it. It talks about, hell being thrown into this lake of fire also. So that's how we know that hell is not another way how we know that hell is not a place where you die and you go. Hell is a condition, right, that you are put in. So, in this lake of fire will be America. When they drop those nuclear bombs on America, it's going to turn this place into the lake of fire. So we talked about how America got some of the world's biggest underground volcanoes, right? Then not only do it got some of the world's biggest underground volcanoes. You got Yellowstone that's ready to blow up. And if that blow up, that's gonna by itself can take out half the country. And all that stuff, right? So when these nuclear bombs hit, it cause seismic activity, earthquakes. Then that earthquake is gonna dislodge some of these underground volcanoes that America got. And this place is gonna turn into the lake of fire. So, and then these people, these elites that's running everything, they're going to get tossed into that lake of fire. When it says they're going to be tossed in there, they both cast alive into the lake of fire burning with brimstone, right? And the remnant which were slain with the sword of him that sat on the horse, which proceed out his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with the flesh, with their flesh, right? So the armies of the world, right? This part is talking about Armageddon. So the armies of the world, they gonna be destroyed by Christ and the Israelites, right? The 144,000. So that's why it says the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat on the throne, on the horse, which sword proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh, right? So let's get 2nd Ezra. 13. Alright, 2nd Ezra 13. We're going to start at the top. Alright, 2nd Ezra 13 says, and it came to pass after 7 days I had a dream. So this is our dear brother Ezra, having a vision of this Armageddon thing, right? What we just read in Revelation 19 and 21, right? So we're going to get the understanding. So it says, and it came to pass after 7 days I had a dream by night, and lo, there arose a wind from the sea. It moved all the water, all the waves thereof. And I behold, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. And when he turned his countenance looked, all things trembled that were seen under him. So this is talking about the Mashiach Yahushua, right? When he come back with the millions and the millions, gotta say it like the rock, of his angels, the whole world is going to see it, and they're going to be looking, right? So they're going to be scared. And the reason why they're going to be looking and scared, because to them, in their mind, they're not looking at it as, oh, this is sweet Jesus coming back. They looking at it as, oh, this is a alien invasion. This is an extraterrestrial thing, right? So it says, and I behold, and lo, a man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven, and when he turned his countenance looked, and the things trembled that were seen under him. So when he showed up, when that big, strong black man show up, pissed off, mean as hell, and when he shows up, and the people see him, and they're going to be afraid. They're not going to know what to do. It's like, they're going to be like, what is this? And then whatever direction he look at, it's going to be like, what's that, was it Class Act? Right? You remember when a play was, he got into the whole Blade Brown thing. He was in a restaurant, and he was like, everybody was, they thought he was Blade Brown, and he turned around and the whole restaurant ducked down, right? So that's how these armies going to be. When Christ show up with his army, and he looking all tough, and he mean mugging the crowd, they all going to be like, oh, shit, don't look at me. They going to duck, right? So it says, and whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as earth filled when it flee into the fire, right? So it says that's because he's Because when he get that order, right, the Israelites, when he, hope I'm saying it right for my Israelite people that, know the Hebrew. When he get that order, Lakam, right, and we go attack, that's that fire that's coming out his mouth. Him giving the order, and we going rushing these people and destroying these nations. Yeah, okay, no. So then, then it says, and whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, and all they that burnt that heard his voice, like as the earth fell when it fleeteth from fire. After this I beheld, and lo, there was a gathering together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of heaven to subdue the men that came out of the sea. So the armies of the world, this is happening in the mix of World War III, right? World War III is happening, so here come Christ in the middle of World War III, right? So at this point, America is destroyed, right? America's destroyed. Sure, they got gazillion army bases all over the world, so, they still military somewhat, probably still functioning or whatever, but this landmass called the USA, America, off the map, right? So, so then he come in, and it says, and after this I behold, lo, there was a gathering of a multitude of men out of number from four winds of heaven to subdue that man that came out of the sea. So, and that sea is talking about the Israelites, because, sea is a metaphor for a lot, or a swarm, or a group, so a people, right? So, so they see him. They like, oh, shoot, what is this? We got to go, just stop fighting each other and just go fight this guy. Because what is that? Because what did Reagan say? Reagan say, what can bring the whole world together but a outside force, extraterrestrial, something like that. Paraphrasing. He said that what can bring the whole world together. And that's exactly what's going to bring the whole world together, because they're going to see this black man who they know as Jesus Christ, and they're going to want to fight him, right? So, then it says, and I behold, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain, and flew upon it, and behold, I would have seen the region of, or place whereout of the hill was graven, and I could not. So let's talk about the Israelites, because when you read in Daniel 2 and talk about that stone that smote the image, that stone become a great mountain, right? And that great mountain is the nation of Israel. So when it said he flew on it, meaning he got into protection mode, right? Right? He getting into defense, right? And it says, and after this I behold, and lo, which were gathered together to subdue the man, which were gathered to subdue him, were so afraid. So these people are going to be afraid in that day. When Christ come back with his angels, and the world's armies done gathered together, all that's left after, that's whatever's left in the midst of World War III, because they bombing everybody. So whatever they can muster up. So they're going to be afraid when they see this, though, right? So it says, were sore afraid, and yet does fight. So although they're going to be afraid, that good old patriotism in them is going to make them fight. They're going to have to fight, because the Lord is going to put the spirit on them to make them go still into battle, even though they like, dang, this is something I never saw before. We're about to fight, a supernatural being, extraterrestrial, right? They don't know what to expect. So it says, after this I behold, and lo, all they that which were gathered together to subdue him were so afraid, and yet does fight. And lo, as I saw, And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held a sword, nor any instrument of war, right? Because he said, like, again, he said, Lakam. And I've said it like that because hopefully I'm saying it right. And that means attack, get him. That order he gives to the 144,000 to destroy these people, right? And it says, but only saw that he sent out his mouth as it had been a blast of fire out of his lips, a flaming breath out of his tongue, and he cast out sparks and tempests, and they were all mixed together, blast and fire and flaming breath, and a great tempest and fell with violence upon the multitude which were prepared to fight. So he released the Israelites on them, right? And without me getting into all detail, the whole breakdown, just going to show you one verse. Jeremiah 50 and 21. And it says, 51 and 20, my bad. Jeremiah 51 and 20. And it says, Thou art my battle axe. Thou art my battle axe and weapons of war. So who is God talking to? The Israelites. It says, let me start from 19. The portion of Jacob is not like them. Meaning, we're not like them. How our dear brother Kendrick Lamar say, they not like us, right? The portion of Jacob is not like them, because they not like us. For he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. Because we got the promise. Everything belongs to us, right? We got the promise. And the Lord of hosts is his name. Thou art my battle axe and weapons of war. For with thee, the thee is the Israelites, I will break in pieces the nations, and and with thee I will destroy kingdoms, and with thee I will break in pieces the horses and their riders, meaning their tanks, their little military equipment, weapons, vehicles, and with thee I will break in pieces the chariot and their riders, the whole armed forces, whatever they got. He's gonna use us to destroy it. And it says, and with thee I will also break in pieces man and woman, and with thee I will break in pieces old and young, and with thee I will break in pieces young and maid. And I also, so like I say, God is going to use us to wreak havoc, right? And it goes back to where it says, but I only saw that he sent out his mouth as it had been a blast of fire out of his lips, and a flaming fire out of his tongue, and cast out sparks and tempests. And they were all mixed together, a blast of fire and flaming breath, and great tempest fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, right? And this is what it looks like in Jeremiah 51 and 20, because we are his battle axe, weapons of war, right? But we have to get back to that status, right? Because when you read during the time of David and Solomon, we was the greatest army ever. Wasn't nobody can mess with us, right? Greatest army ever, right? And we still the greatest army ever, even though we just have to get back to that righteousness. There's going to come a day that we're going to be back to that greatest army ever, because we are a warrior people. Even the Bible says we are a nation of king and priests, and we also some warriors too. And it says, so it says, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burnt them up every one, meaning we destroyed every one of them, so that upon the sudden innumerable multitude nothing was perceived, meaning that the world's army that gathered together in this Armageddon thing, the Valley of Jehoshaphat, when they came from all corners of the earth to come fight the big man himself, Yahweh Shai, when they came to fight good old sweet Jesus, right? What happened to him? It says, an innumerable multitude, nothing was perceived, but only dust and smoke. So they got obliterated. They got disintegrated. We destroyed these people. We turned them into dust. That's what Ezra is saying. That's what the prophet Ezra is saying, right? And it says, a innumerable multitude, nothing was perceived, but only dust and smoke. And when I saw this, I was afraid. So Ezra was like, man. So this is Ezra seeing this vision. Ezra probably lived like, a little over, just about almost 3,000 years ago, right? And this is what he's seeing, right? He's seeing this future final battle, this Armageddon, and he's seeing the Israelites get down on these people, right? And destroy these people, right? And keep in mind, Ezra, he's an Israelite too, right? He's a prophet, right? Holy man of God. But what did he say? But when I saw this, I was afraid. So this stuff, what's going to happen in the future, in the near future, even this great man of God, even though he's on the right team, on the winning side, it's still frightful to see, right? That's how much we're going to get down when we get down, right? That's the power of the Lord once he give it to us, to do these things, right? And so it says, after I saw the same man come down from the mountain and call unto him another peaceable multitude, and there came much people unto him. Therefore some were glad, because some of them like, "Woo, we made it out." Some were sorry, because like, dang, I didn't know he was black. Oh my God, Jesus is black. I should have not treat those people like that. Why did I do that? Oh my God. It says, some were bound, because like we read in Isaiah 14, that we will take them captives, who captives we were. So some were bound. Some brought them with offer, and then was I sick through great fear, and I awakened and said. So he's seeing these visions. He passed out, and I guess he woke up again. It says, "Thou hast showed thy servant these wonders from the beginning, and has continued and counted me worthy that thou showest should receive my prayer." Right. So so he showed Ezra these things. Show Ezra these different things that have to come to pass, and before the coming of the Lord, right? And let's jump up to 21 real quick. Get verse 21. And verse 21. It says, the interpretation of the vision that shall I show thee. I will open unto thee the things that thou hast required, whereas thou hast spoken of them that are left behind. This is the interpretation. He that shall endure the peril in the time that have kept himself, they which be fallen into danger are such as have works in faith towards the Almighty. Know this, therefore, they that which be left behind are more blessed than they be dead. This is the meaning of the vision, whereas thou sawest a man coming from the midst of the sea. The same is he that whom God has highest had kept a great season, which is by his own self shall deliver his creature, and he shall order them that are left behind. Whereas thou sawest that out of his mouth were came as a blast, wind and fire and storm, and that he held neither sword nor instrument of war, but he rushed, but that the rushing of him destroyed the whole multitude, came in to subdue him. This is the interpretation. So the rushing is talking about the armies of Yahweh, which makes up the 144,000 and the armies of heaven, the angels, right? So the rushing is us attacking, flooding, right? You know, attacking the people. And it says, boom, boom, boom. Is that it on that? Oh, read to 38. And it says, said, behold, the days come when the Most High will begin to deliver them that are upon the earth. And he shall come to the astonishment of them that dwell on the earth, and one shall overtake and fight against another. One city against another, one place against another, one people against another, one realm against another. So, global war, civil war, race wars, right? So it says, in the day come, the Most High will begin to deliver them that dwell on the earth. So as our deliverance is getting nigh, as it's getting closer, all hell will be breaking loose on earth, right? But God protected his hidden ones. He's going to protect them in that day, as these days is getting closer. So it says, where I'm at, then it says, and he shall come to the astonishment of them that dwell on the earth, and one shall undertake to fight against another, and one city against another. So civil war, one place against another. Global war, one people against another. Race war, one realm against another. You know, that's basically talking about, you know, different regions fighting against different regions. That's a world war, you know. Then it says, and things shall, and the time shall be when these things shall come to pass, and the signs shall happen which I showed thee before. Then shall my son be declared, whom thou sawest the man ascendant, right? And when all the people hear his voice, every man shall hear his own land. Every man shall in their own land leave his battle. So like we said, like when the great multitude came to subdue him, what it says? It says, it says, and when all people hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave the battle they have one against another. So why all hell is breaking loose, World War III is happening. That's why I said Christ is coming back in the middle of World War III. So why all hell is breaking loose, it says, and when they all hear his voice, every man shall in their own land leave their battle. They have one against another, and innumerable multitudes shall be gathered together, as thou sawest them willing to come, and to overcome him by fighting. But he shall stand up. He shall stand upon the top of the mountain, of Mount Zion, and Zion shall come, and shall be and shall be sold to all men, being prepared and built like again. Okay, yeah, being prepared and built like as thou sawest in the hill, graven without hands. So again, like we said, that nation that was graven without hands is the nation of Israel. And like we read in Daniel 2, that stone that smote the image, it ended up growing to become a big nation. It ended up becoming a powerful nation, right? So it's exactly what the angel here is explaining to our dear brother Ezra. So, and you see this a lot when you read the Bible, like different prophets will have the same vision, but they'll see it from a different point, right? Daniel saw the statue of the different empires coming in. So then by the time you get to Revelation, John is living in one of the empires. So that's why he says that the beast that is, talking about the current Roman Empire. So the point is, sometimes the prophets can speak on the same event or same prophecy, but they're seeing it in a different point of that, prophecy of when it's happening. So yeah, he's saying the same thing that Daniel and John and them was seeing. And it says, but the difference with this, he's getting the vision of the battles, like the fighting and all that stuff, And it says, boom, boom, boom. And this my son shall rebuke the wicked inventions of those nations. So all these their army, their military prowess, their everything, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna be nothing compared to this supernatural being known as the Mashiach Yahushua, who the world calls Jesus Christ. It says, he shall and Sion shall come and and my son shall rebuke the wicked inventions of those nations, meaning their military weapons is going to be non-effect, which for their wicked life are fallen into the tempest, and shall lay before them their evil thoughts and torments wherewith they shall begin to be tormented with, which are like unto the flames, and he shall destroy them without labor by the law which is unto fire. So what that means, he should destroy them without labor, but by the law. So when he give that commandment, like when it says Deuteronomy 18:18, listen to him. Like, he gonna put his words in his mouth, and we are to listen to him. It goes back to the law. That's what it means by the law. So because by law we are required to follow Christ and to obey him, right? Because he's our king. So when you give that law, that decree to destroy these nations, we're gonna do it, right? And so that's what it means by without labor, by the law which is unto fire. So this is Zechariah 2:6, right? Zechariah 2:6 says, Ho, come forth and flee from the land of the north, talking about America, said Yahweh, for I have spread you abroad as the four winds of heaven, said the Lord. Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwell with the daughters of Babylon. Because what is America? The daughter of Babylon, right? Because America is nothing but a big old state of confusion, right? It's all crazy over here. So that's why it is the daughter of Babylon, right? So we see that this is the nation, right, that's going to, implement what they call the mark of the beast, right? America's going to be very influential in this so-called mark of the beast, and sure, every, other nation's going to have their own system set up, because a lot of people confuse it. They think that the mark of the beast is like, going to be global and all that stuff. But, other nations, they got their own little currency and how they going to do it, but the Bible focuses on the nation of America, like when it's concerning the beast, right? And so, yeah, we just got to keep that in mind. So, hopefully that was edifying. We got a little better understanding on the mark of the beast. And that, it is the RFID chip, that's what it is. Neuralink, whatever fancy word they want to call it. And so, yeah, hopefully a lot of us don't take it. Sadly, a lot of us don't take it. So, hopefully that was edifying. I'm going to say peace, shalom. I'm out.